Welcome back to my podcast. I hope you're enjoying the others I've done. This is number 4. This will be called about the gospel trumpet during the Daniel Warner years. Now, before there was a Church of God in 1881, there also existed already the gospel trumpet. It was the property of Daniel S. Warner. Daniel would occasionally take on partners to help with the cost of publishing the paper, but he owned it as a solo enterprise. During this time, he was supporting a group of itinerant traveling ministers known as flying messengers. The paper was nicknamed the Flying Roll. One of the reasons for this nickname was that it changed location 6 times in 7 years. In 1881, the paper was located in Indianapolis, Indiana, and true to the vision of an endless movement and outreach, it was proposed for a salvation car. This would be a train car, which would publish the gospel trumpet, have some living accommodations, and even preaching platform as they traveled along with the flying messengers. Now, this was a very expensive proposal, and funds were never able to be raised for it. But it was a serious consideration and request, but they could not get it. And lack of funds were a constant during the Daniel Warner years. He was not a good businessman. In fact, while in Indianapolis, the paper moved from a rented space to a shed at his home. This was to save the $5 a month rent. But during the winter, this unheated shed, they couldn't print, so they moved the newspaper into the home. Now, the wife of my mentor, Pastor Newell Petty, Shirley Petty, said that this was the reason that the Warners' marriage ended. I wouldn't go so far as that, but couldn't have helped. Well, next year, the fall of 1881, the paper moved to Hartington, Ohio. At this location, the large hand-operated hand press broke down, had to replace with a much smaller job press, forcing them to reduce the size of the paper and the number of print letters per page. In turn, they had to reduce the price of subscription. The following year, 1883, they moved to Bucyrus, Ohio. And this was never a very good move because here, except for one thing, here they purchased a Country Campbell press. This was the first substantial professional press, a power press. But their time at Bucyrus was not done well. It was filled with scandal. The first of this was a tragic Annapolis, Ohio General Assembly, which was chaotic and was just a pure mess. Following this, even worse, was what's called the Stockwell Rice Sarah Warner controversy. The controversy was caused by the man of Stockwell, with the aid of Warner's wife Sarah, to force him to give up the gospel trumpet and turn it over to Rice. No one knows his first name. Ultimately, he refused. And because of this refusal, his wife separated from him and would later result in a divorce. The pain of this dissolution of his marriage caused Warner to miss publishing several editions of the paper. In 1884, Warner and the gospel trumpet moved to Williamston, Michigan. I think part of the reason for the move was just to get a change because of the memories of the other location. But here, he was joined by J.C. and Allie Fisher, who were very good allies and very good in help. While there, they published a songbook called The Songs of Victory. This would be first of many songbooks and hymnals they would publish. And these are very important to understand the Church of God theology and Church of God view on things. While there, also, this was the beginning of what would become known as the Trumpet family. These were gospel workers who worked at the printing press in exchange for room and board. The paper would be run by volunteers until the Great Depression, when, believe it or not, at a cost-saving measures, unpaid volunteers were replaced with salaried workers. The Gospel Trumpet moved once more in 1886 to Grand Junction, Michigan. While the paper would move twice more, this was the last time during Daniel Warner's tenure as editor. I have a picture of Grand Junction. Let me go show that to you. Here you go. On top, you'll see the a home where the trumpet workers stayed. On bottom, the factory where they produced the newspaper and other books and other things they printed. Very nice accommodations. I can only imagine some of the early accommodations were barely more like shacks than they were real homes. But they finally were getting along and doing what they needed to do. All right, it was at Grand Junction that J.C. Fisher would fall in love with a younger woman and divorce his wife, Allie. This was unacceptable to Warner, and he demanded that Fisher resign. To pay for his holdings in the company, Daniel Warner had E.E. Byram come and join the company then. E.E. was at only 26, and he had never been a publisher in his life, but he seems to have taken to it like a duck to water. So it was very good. As E.E. Byram came on, though, an important thing happened. The paper, as an organ that sort of was behind and supported traveling ministers, sort of switched gears, and the paper became the center of the Church of God. The traveling ministers were not as central to it as would be otherwise. Anyway, that's the first. Daniel Warner would live several more years, 8 more years, but he would not be publisher again. He would just be a minister doing what he loved, traveling and preaching and sharing the gospel. And that's the Warner years of the Gospel Trumpet. Next, I'll be bringing another peculiar little fact, the floating Bethel. Thank you.